Hi, I'm Carly,
I'm Taylor.
and it's 2:10 at Bear Creek.
So the first question we're going to address is a company wants to improve the accessibility of its online product catalog for blind users. I can advise them what design actions to take according to the following guidelines. So the first guideline we were going to talk about is guideline 1.1, and that's basically providing text alternatives so that non-text content can be changed into other forms for people of need to access like Braille or speech capabilities instead. So a way that we could implement that in our webpage would be providing alt tags in our HTML code that, say for example, we had pictures. The alt tag would describe a description of that picture instead so that the blind users can use that to understand what the picture is representing. And then for guideline 1.4, it's just distinguishability, so making it easier for users to hear content that's like separated between the foreground and background of the web page. So a couple of ways that we could address this problem is one, if we have some sort of like video or audio feed that's playing automatically, if it's longer than 3 seconds, we need to build in a functionality that can toggle it, mute it, or stop it, because blind users will be primarily focusing on audio capabilities as far as understanding what's going on the web page. So we need to make that as easy for them as possible. So another thing that we could do for that too is make the volume for the foreground features a little bit louder, and then the background we would have little to no audio so that they could easily differentiate between those two when they're navigating through our website. Okay, so our second question is I can explain the difference between two inquiry methods, contextual and then cooperative inquiry. So contextual inquiry is kind of like a semi-formal interview where the designer is going to interview the user and ask them questions about how they would use their certain software, and then maybe watch them do it and ask questions too. So in that case, the user is not really directly involved in the design process, whereas for cooperative inquiry, like as we saw with the children building the magic house together, the children were directly involved in the design decisions as far as like building the new product for them. And then lastly, for my side, I can explain the difference between feedback and visible system status. So a system provides a user feedback based upon what they do. So in the example of a crosswalk, a user would get feedback when pressing a button when it beeps. So feedback is basically dependent on like the system letting the user know that it got its response. Visible system status is different in the way that it's just the system letting the user know what the current status or whatever of the system is. So in the example of the crosswalk 2, that would be like the light flashing from stop to go. So the status is changing, and the crosswalk is letting the user know that it's okay to cross now. And that is the difference between those.
Awesome. So my questions are the last 3, and my first question is number 4. When my manager is contemplating installing surveillance cameras, I can explain to my manager that there are political consequences. So a first really big consequence is just like the awareness of people coming into your store and not knowing that there's surveillance cameras installed. So it's that idea that like they're being watched without them knowing it, which could result in a lot of really bad consequences like suing and stuff like that. And then the second one's just like voyeurism, and if you don't have like a super just like safe system in place, then it could be easily hackable, and then a bunch of people have just like surveillance footage of you and other people in the store that would never have been like accessible unless that was in place. So that's just like a huge privacy concern as well. So those are 2 just political consequences. So my next question is number 5. I can describe what Fitts law is meant to predict and explain the terms in the Fitts law equation. So Fitts law is supposed to just try to find like the average time to calculate like the user point from one point in the area to the other. So the equation is a plus b log base 2 of 2d over w. And a and plus b are both just like constants that you get from your data source. So like how much time, like each specific time, those are just constants just like derived from that equation. And then log base 2 over 2d over w. That's just the index of difficulty, which is basically the maximum time just in general. So that is basically just calculating the distance of the starting point to the target over the width of the target. So that's just the index of difficulty, which just calculates that Fitts law, which is like just overall is the regression model to optimize to get to one place to the other. So that's what it's all like calculating. So then our last question is I can give an example of how Apple as a company pays attention to accessibility. So Apple really focuses on accessibility for all users. So like just to see that everybody would, whether you're like disabled or non-disabled, that you can all use their features. And one huge feature they have is just the voiceover command. So you can put like turn it on in your settings, and then if you're blind or you're hard of seeing, you can turn that on and it describes everything that you have on the screen if you click it 3 times. So it really helps people who can't see, and then it like helps describe everything that's on the screen. So that is all of our questions.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Thank you.